Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Squirm Night 2025. My name is Ray Ercue, Editor-in-Chief of the Aspen Times. Thank you for joining us live from GrassRoots TV for an evening of insightful discussions with our Aspen mayoral candidates.
And I'm Andre Salvale, Editor-in-Chief of the Aspen Daily News. We're excited to co-host this event alongside the Aspen Times and our broadcasting partners, Aspen Public Radio, GrassRoots TV. We'd like to extend a warm welcome to our mayoral candidates, Rachel Richards and Katie Frisch, as well as everyone in the audience and those watching and listening from home.
Tonight's Squirm Night is made up of 4 sections. The first half delves into the multifaceted issues regarding Aspen's entrance. The candidates will then answer questions related to several additional issues facing the city and their campaigns.
For the first section tonight, candidates will have 2 minutes to respond to each question. In the second section, we will ask a question to a candidate in which they will have up to 90 seconds to answer. The other candidate will get an opportunity for a 60-second rebuttal. In the third section of the evening, we will ask each candidate several quick questions, and they will have 30 seconds to respond. Each candidate will then have a chance to ask each other a question, perhaps 2.
Each candidate will also have time for opening and closing statements. To keep things running smoothly, Breeze Richardson of Aspen Public Radio will be our timekeeper. She will display a yellow card when there are 30 seconds remaining and a red card when time is up, both for opening and closing statements and also candidate answers and rebuttals.
Thank you all again for joining us tonight. We encourage all candidates to engage openly and respectfully. Let's make this a night of meaningful conversation about the future of our community. And perhaps someone will squirm, given the nature and the name of our event.
So, without further ado, let's begin with opening statements from our mayoral candidates. Katie, you are first. You have 2 minutes to tell us about yourself and your candidacy.
Great. Thank you very much. So, good evening, everyone. And thank you, first of all, to GrassRoots TV, Aspen Public Radio, Aspen Daily News, Aspen Times. There's a ton of journalists here in the audience, so it's great to see. I'm Katie Frisch. Just a quick bio for those of you who don't know me. I grew up ski racing outside of Syracuse, New York, and raced in college while getting a degree in electrical engineering. Also received an MBA. I've worked in finance, consulting, and manufacturing, including years of experience in my family manufacturing business. I started in that when I was about 4 years old and spent the last decade or so as a CEO. I've been in Colorado since 2000 and in Aspen since 2003. And most recently, the last 3 years, I spent running my husband's congressional campaign, Adam Frisch. We have 2 teenagers and a very overactive dog who keeps me running. I feel blessed to have a diverse group of friends throughout our community, and I'm really happy to be here tonight and to be running. And the question is, why am I running? Our family really believes in elected community service. I've served on a number of nonprofit boards, AVSC, Aspen Public Radio, although I'm not on it anymore, Wildwood School, and so I've had real community service experience. I've also done real politics, and by real politics I mean my husband's congressional campaign. That was real politics. And just like my service with the Aspen School Board, Aspen School District Board of Education, this position for mayor isn't politics, it's elected community service. We need professionally experienced people to help manage a $200+ million budget in our town. And we need people who have the experience to be able to listen to professional experts and not the professional politicians, or be a professional politician. So I'm looking forward tonight to talking about the entrance clearly and about wildfire mitigation and common sense solutions to our issues in town.
Absolutely. Thank you, Katie. Now on to you, Rachel. You have 2 minutes.
Okay. Thank you, GrassRoots. I'm Rachel Richards, candidate for mayor of Aspen. I've been relentlessly targeted as a failed politician over the past months by Bill Guth and the Red Ant. Let me ask you, was saving the Red Brick Arts and Recreation Center and the Yellow Brick Child Care Center from becoming second home sites a failure? Or creating the Aspen Recreation Center for the youth and families of this community? Was it a failure to secure Burlingame for hundreds of working families, couples, and singles? Or forming the Regional Transportation Authority to manage traffic, growth, and congestion valley-wide? Well, Bill Guth and the Red Ant would like you to think so. They've announced their chosen candidates to create the least experienced Aspen City Council in decades, to bring the post-pandemic real estate boom market back to a full boil, and to unleash unlimited short-term rentals in every zone district, so they can treat workers as disposable folks who are just lucky to have jobs here, as they ignore the real fire dangers and negative impacts that our failed entrance has on our neighborhoods and our side roads. That's not how I see Aspen. I've worked the multi-job lifestyle and know what it takes. I've given 30 years of my life, my heart, and my soul to this town, protecting our watershed, securing funding for the open space acquisitions like Smuggler Mountain and Sky Mountain Park, working regionally on partnerships for treating everything from healthcare to climate action to transportation, treating our workers, seniors, children, families, and all income levels with respect. I've shown the ability to look at the big picture, to listen and compromise, the skills to build regional coalitions, and the courage to take on special interests. I have the experience needed to get real results on complex issues, and I humbly ask for your vote on March 4th. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. So we're going to move on to part one, entrance to Aspen questions. Again, I must reiterate, both candidates get 2-minute answers for each question. Regarding the entrance to Aspen, the long-standing debate over this touches on issues of open space, preservation, commuter and local traffic, emergency access, and neighborhood concerns. The same question will be directed to both candidates, who will have up to 2 minutes to answer, of course. On to you, Andre.
We're going to start with Rachel. What are the primary concerns of residents and commuters regarding the entrance to Aspen? What solutions do you propose?
Well, I would support a yes vote on referendum 2 going forward from this point. That would allow a message to be sent to the Colorado Department of Transportation and to the future City Council that the town is ready to move forward. I see the current situation has failed for a number of reasons. It's backed up traffic on Cemetery Lane halfway up McLean Flats to Sunnyside Trail. It backs up traffic up to the Highlands when people are trying to get out, and the school buses particularly. It is not safe for fire evacuation. And the past council has spent about 2 years studying a 3-lane bridge solution, which would still only have 1 lane coming in. They have not embarked on an environmental impact study statement, which they could have begun 2 years ago, and have wasted the opportunity to get the Biden Infrastructure and Jobs Act money. I do not believe a 3-lane solution would support mass transit, reduce idling traffic, and in particular provide a safe wildfire evacuation, a second route, a second bridge. I think it's important to take the preferred alternative into a reevaluation phase, which would take about 6 months. Based on Jacobs Engineering, and the data we gather from that, whether the system would work or not, will allow us to then really enter an EIS with good knowledge. But to build a 3-lane bridge while the community is using that same bridge, which people think of as fairly weakened right now, would be a traffic nightmare. It would take several years, several summers to build that. Jacobs Engineering said they could do it in 2 years, but only if they could have a detour bridge off of Smuggler or Mayoral, and neither of those seem palatable to the current council. So we've all seen the traffic problems when they're just testing the bridge, when they're restriping Maroon Creek Bridge, when there's an accident on the bridge. I cannot see us living with a 3-lane bridge solution in the future. Thank you very much.
Katie, the same question. What are the primary concerns of the community regarding the entrance, and what solutions would you propose?
Well, the city just did a survey where the primary concern was traffic, 100%. And the referendum 2, which gives away our open space to let the state build this preferred alternative, does not fix traffic. None of the engineering studies say that it fixes traffic. And so I'm not supportive of referendum 2 for a number of reasons. The first reason is it's based on 30-year-old data. Lots of things have changed since all the studies were done. The lumberyard wasn't contemplated, Burlingame wasn't there, the North 40 wasn't there. There was one lane through Snowmass Canyon in each direction. We're in a completely different environment now. We have different inputs. We need to have a different evaluation, open up an EIS, and have a new solution. I also don't understand why in the world we want to give away control of our open space to the state. The way the ballot measure reads, whether it was intended or not, is that they can do whatever they want, and we never get another vote if they choose to not allow us one. We may never get another vote on this. We could basically be stuck with whatever solution in whatever time frame they want to do it in. There's no money in the state budget. It's going to be 12 to 15 years minimum before they have the money to build this. We're not on their 10-year plan, and there's $2.5 billion of infrastructure projects ahead of this. So we're just going to be twiddling our thumbs, waiting for a then 45-year-old solution to be implemented. Our open space will be gone. There's no way a politician in Denver is going to pay for a cut and cover tunnel in Aspen. That does not get them reelected in Denver. So they don't have to. So we will be giving up a lot more open space than the opposition is saying we are. It's also 6-lane wide, 6 lanes, bus lane, a traffic lane, and a shoulder lane in each direction, plus room for transit later on in a very wide median. So it is a huge, huge project that doesn't help traffic.
If I could just follow up on
Sure.
some of your remarks. You said it won't fix traffic. I don't know if you can fix traffic, but isn't there a 7-minute time savings involved?
Not for vehicles. It might help transit, but it does not fix traffic. And what people talked about in the survey was traffic. See, you and I want to get into town in our car as quickly as possible.
No, I want to get out faster.
Or out as quickly as possible. Perfect. But all of the modeling about transit is about how quickly buses go. And the state doesn't care how, they want fewer cars going into town. They don't care how long it takes cars. They want people to ride buses. The guy who runs RAFTA this morning was talking about their only concern is transit. They don't care about traffic. So that's my issue with it. The models show that it might fix it like by a minute in an individual car.
1 minute.
Yeah.
Max.
Rachel, I can give you 30 seconds on this.
Well, that was a little long rebuttal for that, but those numbers that
There
are
was no
being,
yellow folder.
yeah.
We're not there
Then
yet.
maybe a minute. Those numbers that are being quoted are the 2050 projections. Jacobs Engineering looked at all the alternatives, and now the 2050 projections are being used to disparage the preferred alternative. The ballot question actually requires a new National Environmental Policy Act environmental impact study if anything other than the existing preferred corridor is used. They cannot walk away from the cut and cover tunnel. That is a total falsehood. They're using some sort of engineering stuff that was said, well, you'll have to engineer it a little better than it is right now to make sure it's fire safe, but it was early drawings. No one ever moved forward. They're also, within the Jacobs Engineering, had a 75-foot platform for the bridge and for the, not for the bridge, but for the roadway. I think the bridge is a little wider. There's just a lot of mistruths being put out. I think it's important to put a signal forward that we're ready to move forward, and projects become funded when the money is available. If you're ready, other projects fall off the list. We need to move forward and give a signal. I don't think we can self-fund for a $159 million bridge out of Aspen's budget without an EIS.
Okay. Ray?
Next question. Katie, this is for you.
Sure.
How critical is cooperation with Down Valley communities to address the entrance question and also to alleviate traffic congestion along Highway 82? How can we bring the voices who are not participating in the Aspen election to the table, or should we?
That's a great question. So it's all about quality of life, right? The reason we want to fix this problem and have new solutions for the entrance is to give not just our residents in Aspen, in particular in the West End, our residents in Aspen, but also throughout the whole valley, our commuters, our visitors, everyone. I think that we need to make sure that a cooperative solution is part of the equation here. Now, the legal who votes on what is another story. But one of the problems with the current entrance is the only issue is not just one bridge. There are a number of bottlenecks along 82. Council the other night was talking with the Board of County Commissioners about opening up some conversations to fix some of these pinch points and some of these bottlenecks. Nothing is going to get improved. We're just going to get stuck in other places if we don't. So, the new light at 7th Street that this alternative has is just going to back stuff up in either direction, depending whether it's morning or afternoon. It's yet another light. So working across the entire community, recognizing that the lifestyle for our entire community is really important is something that needs to be part of the conversation. And whether that occurs at the elected level or the community level, I think it's up to individual electeds to talk with their communities. But those conversations need to happen,
Absolutely.
for sure. 100% supportive
Specifically, where are some of these other bottlenecks?
Oh, well, there's a number of them. I mean, we have multiple. So first of all, the Lumberyard project will have a new light. So we have multiple lights on 82. We have the part by Buttermilk where it goes into one lane. We have HOV lanes that aren't really HOV lanes. So that's a big question. And there's a number of turning points, left turns that back things up, things along Main Street that affect traffic as it's leaving in particular. There's traffic coming in on 8th Street as you're leaving town by the bus stop and on 7th. So all those little bottlenecks, they all add up.
Absolutely.
As well as pedestrian traffic, might I add.
So, Rachel, what are your thoughts on this? How critical is cooperation with Down Valley communities to address the entrance question and to alleviate traffic congestion along Highway 82? How can we bring those voices to the table, or if we should?
Well, thank you for that. When I was mayor, I helped form the Regional Transportation Authority, and the entire valley is now paying both property and sales tax to be able to control congestion in their communities as well as ours. I think it's important to fix the bottlenecks that we can and continue to work on the others. I'm a big supporter of the Aspen Institute's Upper Valley Mobility Study, and I think that we can continue to get more people out of cars. Everyone can't use it for every trip, but when the service is frequent, fast, on time, and reliable, more people are willing to take that trip. As you alluded to, 8 minutes of time saving really matters to make your connection at the Barsh Creek Intercept lot or to make your transfer in Glenwood Springs to the Hogback route, given that over 20% of our workforce in Pitkin County now travels over 50 miles a day, one direction. And I think most of those people would rather be on a bus than riding up 500 miles a week in their car and the gasoline cost. I think we need to manage congestion, and you do that with mass transit. You can't manage it just by bringing in more cars. And so I find the argument going back and forth and a little contradictory that, we have to deal with traffic faster, and yet we really want people on mass transit. RAFTA brings 2.2 million people across the Castle Creek Bridge daily right now, annually right now, and that would be nice.
It wouldn't, actually.
Excuse me. And the issues that we are facing is that it's not a new traffic light. It is a traffic light that's moved from Cemetery Lane over to 7th and Main, and there's been concern expressed that it already needs a traffic light for safe pedestrian crossing. But I think we need to develop the bus lane, allow the reevaluation, which might mean we can take shuttles, transit vehicles of other sorts out of the bus-only lane. I agree fully with supporting HOV enforcement. I think that's something that we can fund and we should move forward with.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Rachel, another question about the entrance.
It's the big one.
It is.
I understand that.
It seems to be the focal point, of this election. We've been talking about it for decades. Why do you think it is the dominant issue in the election, or do you think it is?
I do think it's the dominant issue, but for a number of reasons that aren't really fully discussed. One is the emergency fire evacuation needs of this town. We can do a lot to do early detection, help people harden their homes, issues like that. But on the other hand, it's a 14-hour evacuation time estimated with a single bridge, let alone a bridge that might be under construction. To tell people to go to the parking garage and shelter in place down there is not really a great answer. I think having a second evacuation route is important, and what really matters is when there's such an emergency, the incident command structure comes into play. At that point, the State Patrol takes charge. They open up all lanes to traffic. They can turn off the traffic signals, turn off the red lights, really get things moving forward. And people will have some level of warning, but you know, you're hoping they don't wait to the last minute, wait till they see the flames, that they take the warning seriously and move quickly. We can't tell where a fire is going to come from. It could be a homeless camp on Smuggler Mountain. You know, it'll only come up valley is a little ludicrous. The fires we're seeing are unprecedented in nature. They never thought it would cross the state highway in Glenwood Canyon and the river. They never thought it would jump over the Continental Divide in Grand County. We're in a warming climate, and we need to take that seriously. Public safety is the #1 concern of an elected official. Thank you.
Katie, along those same lines, do you think that the entrance issue is the dominant issue in the campaign? And
Yeah.
Well,
It clearly has been, I mean, look at the yard signs, right? Like, they're all over the place. Why is it the dominant issue? Why, after 40 plus years of having this discussion, is it now all of a sudden an emergency? One might argue that it's groups that started referendums, such as my opponent, that are being funded at a rate of hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's why there's money behind it. That's why it's an issue. Huge amounts of money, huge donors giving a lot of money to this issue, and then conflating it with other issues like wildfire. So what I fail to understand is how a bridge that isn't going to be built for 15 years is our wildfire solution. Like, if everybody's worried about wildfires, as they well should be, as I am, let's talk about things we can do now, not in a decade and a half. So that's my big issue with why wildfire is being conflated. I hope we're going to talk about wildfire. I can talk about stuff about that now. I assume that's on your list for later on. There are a lot of things we can do now. There's a lot of things that are being done. Our wildfire community is incredibly professional and talented, and they set up foundations. They're working across borders. They're working with the sheriff, with the different counties, with the state, with the federal government. Everything is coming together. They don't have the funding. I wish we were spending the money that we're spending on referendums to fund them instead, because they're not able to get their message out, unfortunately. It's a couple of people working on this, and they're not well funded, and unfortunately I don't think they're going to be well funded unless we started as a community doing that. There are fire roads that we can build, for example, to give outside egress. There are ways that have already been contemplated and discussed but haven't been implemented. I'd like to be part of that solution. I'm good at running projects. I'm good at process management. I've run a big organization, and I know how to get things done. And so the idea of helping bring these multiple different groups with different opinions together to actually do a solution today is what I'd like to try to work on.
if I could just...
Can I rebuttal?
I'd like
She's
to
been
follow-
having more follow-ups than I am.
I'd like to follow up with her real quick, and then perhaps so.
Okay.
So you mentioned money.
Yeah.
And the recent campaign finance report showed that referendum 2 had more money, or had spent more money, I believe. But before that, there was a campaign, Fix the Bridge, and there was a lot of money spent on that. And that was totally about the Castle Creek Bridge and not about alternatives.
Yeah. Well, from the campaign finance reports, I believe the referendum 2 people have spent 3 times as much about as a referendum 1 people. So I'm just saying there's a lot of money on this, and we do have a 60-year-old.
There's a lot of money on both sides.
There's a 60-year-old bridge that needs to be replaced that's not on the state plan. So we do need to fix our bridge. We can't not have an entrance. I mean, imagine if that bridge were to fail and we ended up in a situation like Gunnison did this summer. It was a complete disaster for them, a huge financial impact, and a 5-hour detour. So ask anybody in Montrose or Gunnison how they felt about that. We cannot be in that situation. We do need to fix the bridge.
Rachel, we have a long agenda tonight, but I can give you 30 minutes.
Okay,
30
thank you.
minutes?
30 minutes.
Oh, my
30
goodness.
I think this is a dominant issue because of the daily frustration that everyone feels when they're either trying to leave town or come into town. The frustration is extreme. And frankly, there was a charter change proposed by many of the same characters to change the threshold for a vote in our community to a 60-40 margin, a super minority that can control any future solution. There is almost no solution to the entrance to Aspen that won't use some open space somewhere, whether it's Bugsy Barnett Park or the 3-lane bridge, which to work at any minimal level, not even compared to the preferred alternative, would have an extra bus slip lane going in front of Truscott all the way up to the roundabout. It is damaging to other open space.
So next question, alluding to referendums, let's get on to this here.
Alluding.
Why do you think most supporters of referendum one are opposed to the preferred alternative, otherwise known as a straight shot? Do you agree with the accusations of NIMBYism regarding this? And Rachel, this is for you.
Well, I have empathy with the people who are going to see a change in travel pattern who come from Cemetery Lane. Yet I've also heard from Cemetery Lane residents who tell me I can't even back out of my driveway in the morning because there's so much traffic bypassing the entrance currently. The same is going through the West End. I don't think it's appropriate to have a highway bypass going through our child care center, in front of the child care center at the Yellow Brick. It's important to move forward. It's not important to sit on our fingers and hope there's something else that's going to happen soon. It's time to send a signal to the new city council, to CDOT, and to the feds that this problem needs to be fixed. This is coming out because the bridge is deteriorating. And when I was on council in 2022, we were trying to move something forward with the Biden Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act money. It was important to get it started. But it became a new rallying call for the traditional Friends of Mayoral to try to stop this. The Friends of Mayoral is a 501c4, and their money does not have to be reported. I have no idea how much was spent trying to ram a 3-lane bridge concept down our throats. The city council, under Mr. Guth's leadership, spent over $1.2 million on the Jacobs studies, and those studies said the 3-lane bridge was the least effective in dealing with traffic and transportation mobility in the future. It was also the least supported alternative by the polling that the city did recently of the community members. We had close to 70% of the community say, yes, it's appropriate to use a 5-acre slice of the Mayoral, something that's very small and trivial. People keep saying, well, we're going to go through the heart of the Mayoral. No, we're not. I am a major open space advocate. I helped pass the last halfpenny tax that we used to buy Smuggler Mountain and to buy the top of Wilkinson's land and the Sky Mountain and make a lot of trail improvements in our community. I have fought for the environment repeatedly, even testifying with other congresspeople in Washington, D.C. in their offices. Thank you.
Absolutely. Katie, same question. Now, as far as some of the most vocal opponents of referendum one are concerned about specific impacts, such as the potential changes to Cemetery Lane residents' access to the highway, how do you view these concerns?
This issue has not been solved for 40 years for a reason, right? It's been back and forth. How many votes do we have in this thing? I don't know if anyone can even count. It is a very contentious issue because there are impacts to a lot of people. And I agree with Rachel. Traffic is an issue. We want to talk about lifestyle and how people have a better lifestyle by not sitting in their car or on the bus for all day long. I must have read a different engineering report than Rachel did, the one that I read through however many appendixes last night, and I did not leave with the impression that the 3-lane solution was the worst solution. And, I'm an electrical engineer too, so I actually love reading this kind of stuff. And let me tell you, there are a number of parameters that you evaluate a project on. There isn't one number that you look at it at the end of the day. There's costs, there's speed to do it, there's how can you keep traffic open while you're doing it, and the impacts on the neighborhoods as well. When I read the study, to me it was blatantly obvious that the 3-lane replacement now was the way to go. So, what can you say? Different people read the same thing and have a different opinion, but it was pretty clear to me that it was the way that we should be proceeding now. And then we need to have a discussion about how to fix the whole entrance. So how to fix the whole entrance is also to consider more modern solutions. Let's talk about the fact that we have a new airport coming in. That's going to have huge impacts to our community. New terminal, we have an ability to re-engineer the whole entrance. Why in the world are we using solutions that we talked about 40 years ago? It doesn't make any sense to me. So.
All right, Rachel, I know you want to chime in, but we're going to move away from the entrance question now, and you can bring it up later in your question or your closing remarks.
Okay.
This second phase of Squirm Night, we will ask a question to a specific candidate, and you will get 90 seconds to respond, and then the other candidate will have 60 seconds? Yeah, 60 seconds to rebut or offer other thoughts. So we're going to move away from the entrance. I know it's a big topic, but there's plenty of time in the next 2 weeks to talk about it.
I'm glad you gave us the timing again, because I could not remember how much time we got for each other. Thank you.
Recent ballot measures to increase taxes in both Aspen and Pitkin County have consistently met voter approval, reflecting the community's commitment to public funding of various priorities. Rachel, local voters tend to support tax increases for various causes. What's an area you believe is underfunded and why, and should we look at a new tax for it?
Thank you for that. I think it's really important that Kelly Nichols Curry and the County Commission have really secured this past November a funding source for affordable housing. And I've called for convening a housing summit with all the parties, nonprofit, private sector, Pitkin County, our Down Valley communities, to try not to talk about the problem again, but to prioritize how to spend those pots of money. I do think the housing office has been an underfunded office, but I think the county now can go forward with some real funding there because they have a source. In terms of overall funding, the Armory project is going to take both private fundraising and a lot of resources, which is why I think it'd be wrong to look to self-funding a 3-lane bridge with $150 million out of our pockets, which we don't have right now. I think it's time to look at the bigger picture on that question. The people who live in town have the same sort of access problems or more to try to get up to the ARC, the hospital, the schools that others do. This has been a replay of Better Plan 95 when we have improved our transportation systems dramatically. RAFTA was recently funded to start the bus rapid transit system, and it's a valley-wide system. So I'm not sure that there's any new taxes needs. Property taxes are getting really hard for our local residents to maintain. And the more houses turn over with investment for short-term rentals, the more difficult it is for remaining residents to pay the increased property values.
Katie, do you have any thoughts on what might be underfunded and do we need a new tax for it?
Yeah, I was confused by Rachel's answer because I wasn't sure whether she wanted an additional housing tax, an armory tax, and
None of
another
those, Katie, but thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, it was confusing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the first thing that's underfunded is our schools. That's a separate jurisdiction. They are changing the funding model for the schools statewide, and they are really picking on a couple of mountain town communities as they're changing that model. So our school district is going to be in not a great place as the funding model changes this coming year, which is one of the reasons why I'm supportive of looking at the Wheeler funds for helping remodel the district theater and putting it in that as a community asset. That does not require a new tax, though. So I can't, other than the concept of if we do need to self-fund a bridge, that would most likely need to be some form of a bond. Call it a tax or not, it would need to be paid for. But I do think we are at the point on a lot of the sales taxes and stuff that we're reaching a critical point. It's going to be awfully hard to get to the next level on some of those.
Okay.
Absolutely. Well, since we're talking about affordable housing a little bit here, which is one of the top issues for the Aspen area any given time of year, in addition to taxes, whether we want them or not, Katie, what strategic measures should the city adopt to enhance the availability of affordable housing?
Well, I'm supportive of this lumberyard project, first of all, so I think we need to move forward with it. I do think it's awfully expensive. I would love to see ways to value engineer it to try to reduce the per unit costs. I don't know how much, if I'm elected, if the next mayor is going to be able to have a lot of input into that. It seems like the project is pretty far down the path of design. So I do think there needs to be work on making that a little more cost effective. I forgot the second half of the question.
So did I.
It was about housing, but what?
Yeah, to enhance the availability of housing.
Enhance the ability.
Yes. Fair.
Okay, so, different folks have different housing needs. I would like to understand what our goal is. I asked multiple city people at the city, multiple staff members at the city, like, what's our goal? No one knows what the goal is. So I think it's hard to accomplish a goal if you don't actually know what you're trying to accomplish. Mm-hmm. So that's the first thing. The next thing is it can't all just be on the city. It can't all just be on the county. It needs to be on private employers. Some of the big employers, whether it's RAFTA, the school district, the hospital, the county, the city, they all need to contribute to it. Sitting at the ACRA meeting this morning, one thing was clear, that there's a lot of smaller employers that also need to figure out solutions that can't necessarily rely on APSHA to recruit people in particular. So I think it's going to take a whole group.
Take a village?
It's going to take a Hillary Clinton village. Yes. Thank you.
Rachel?
Thank you.
As well.
I think that the lumberyard is moving forward with its ground zero, removing all the old infrastructure and putting in all the utilities at this point. And that was a $30 million commitment by the city. But I think before moving forward with any next phase, we need to develop more regional partnerships and with the very same tax collecting entities as Katie has mentioned, as well as the private sector. But I think what's really important is that the lumberyard, when it is developed, is for year-round working residents. I do not want to see it become a seasonal project. I think it's more important at this point than rushing ahead with the lumberyard to take care of existing deed restriction problems that we have, communities that have capital needs, that had defective problems to begin with. We need that housing summit to really look at old policies that were set up believing that incomes would always rise at a certain level and appreciation was capped, but yet the repairs for those people are not. Buying a new refrigerator, getting new roofing, anything like that is beyond the pale for our working residents. I think our housing program needs to be open to everyone and not who are working here, not people who are selected for a specific job type. I would not like to see that sort of attitude to our housing program, and I think it's important that they maintain the ability to retire in your unit after giving your 40 working years of your life here.
Thank you, Rachel.
We mentioned the Armory Hall project, and the council has been working toward a redevelopment of the building, formerly City Hall. Rachel, what do you think of the way that the council has proceeded with that? And if elected, would you steer the conversation differently? Is the current council on the right track with Armory Hall?
I believe that the architecture and the design that they've looked at is very solid. But the interior uses need to be more of a hub of activity for our youth and our teenagers who really need a place to go. I don't think we need 4 restaurants and bars and that sort of activity in it. I think it is going to need a private fundraising drive, and so you're going to really want to work with potential donors on a vision and the community as a whole on a vision on that. When we get to the type of funding issues, as Katie has put forward, I do believe the Wheeler Fund has money to be able to do some limited capital grants, but they should be competitive among all entities, and they should be matching grants. So I would not, we were asked at a recent forum by the Aspen Education Foundation, where there was no press, would we all commit to just giving them $10 million? And I had to say no. I thought that there needs to be a competitive grant process and something that looks at all the art institutions which help drive our economy, which drive our housing funds, which drive our child care funds, which drive any number of other funds, and actually the community as a whole who are not subject to the real estate transfer tax, like Red Mountain, Mountain Valley, Woody Creek, Snowmass Village. I'd like to see that sort of participation in supporting the school district. But there might be an arts element in the Armory. I think that there really could be some space for that sort of gathering, whether it's poetry readings or performances or things like that. So there's a lot more work to be done to really make sure it satisfies community goals.
Katie, your thoughts on Armory Hall and how the council has been proceeding?
It's funny, we talked about this yesterday at the AF forum that Rachel alluded to, and that's exactly, you kind of repeated what I said about we have underserved populations in this community. Our youth, for example, is a very underserved population. I have 2 teenagers. What do my teenagers do on the weekend? They go down Valley. They can't afford to eat here. They can't afford to play here. They can go to the Ark or they can go on the mountains, but there's no place for them to hang out anymore. And so I think it's very critical that we develop the Armory in a way that enables community usage, so it's not a giant beer hall. We have enough places to eat and drink here. Let's have some, to drink in particular, let's have some food options. Let's have it not be subsidized. But I think the operations of that building should not be something that is a standalone entity. I think the city government is part of their mandate should be to help fund community spaces. And I think we need to turn it into a community space that our youth and our seniors can use and will want to use, and let's have them help plan what it should be from a programming perspective.
Okay, absolutely. On to the next question here. So much has been written, mostly by our illustrious newspaper columnists, about our recent loss of community in Aspen. Rents are sky high. Affordable eateries are a thing of the past. A lot of locals think Aspen's no fun anymore. Katie, do you think Aspen has lost much of its charm and soul, and how do we rectify that?
Well, that's a good question. I think our best days are ahead of us. So I would like to look what I looked like when I was 22, but I don't. This town is going to continue to evolve, and I have the positive attitude of our best days are ahead, and let's try to take what we have and evolve with it. And I do think that there are some buildings, like we talk about the Armory and making sure that we're serving those community needs. Perhaps the ISIS falls into that as well, as they're having issues. The Ark has been a great community asset. It's subsidized at a 50% rate right now by the city from an operating perspective. Maybe the Armory and some of these other things, I was trying to get to that before my last question, should also be subsidized in order to make sure that we have community spaces that can operate. And I think some of that will help address that. I recognize it's a real issue. We hear about it from a lot of our columnists about how terrible our town is. I just think that things are evolving. We're so lucky to live in a place like this. When I meet someone who's just moved here, they're like a kid in a candy store. They just can't believe how lucky they are to be here. And so those of us who have been here for 20 plus years might be a little grumpier about changes. But I think we need to, do what we can do to make life good for the locals, to make life as pleasant as it can be, and to know that our best days are ahead while maintaining that sense of place in our community that we need.
Absolutely. Now, Rachel, same question. What are your thoughts on the question of whether Aspen has lost its way? Is there anything government can do about that?
Yes, there is a role for government, but it really is more about community building and embracing a successor generation to who we are now. Everything changes, everything ages. I absolutely believe, as Katie has expressed, as we all do, or we wouldn't be serving, that our best generations are ahead of us. But we need to be cognizant of what's happening at a national level. Our seniors are going to be stressed if there are cuts to Medicare and to Social Security. We're going to have issues going forward with the Forest Service and the funding cuts there. I think we need to be protective of our workforce who are immigrants and who are feeling treated really poorly right now. And I think respecting our commuting workforce is a big part of that. Our community has spread. Our community includes the Airport Business Center. Our community includes Down Valley. We've missed opportunities before, such as securing the old Motherlode building, which could have been a real adjunct and like T-call to the Wheeler Opera House. I'd like to bring more activity into the Wheeler that's more available. Certainly the Armory project. I think the reinvigoration of the Red Brick and the arts programs there has been very helpful.
But can we resurrect Bentleys? Just kidding.
Yeah.
The Tippler, yay.
Many longtime local residents lament the fact that we have all these development projects on the books, but they're kind of just sitting there and nothing's being done. A few of them are moving forward. And I could mention the projects, but you know what they are. And there's empty buildings, and the people in charge of these projects, in some cases, are just sitting on them or flipping them. Y'all know what this is about. Rachel, do you see this as a problem? And if so, how can city government address it?
You know, I absolutely see it as a problem. And I think there's something you attack from many different angles. One is that the city needs to invest more in its own employees in the community development office so they can turn around building permits faster and be able to move those developments forward faster. But in another sense, sometimes it's because the applicant themselves starts changing the plan and want an immediate thing. So there's two sides to that story. But I would like to bump up the community development process. I'd like to make the codes a little more easy to understand. And administration of things like the short-term rental permits should be easier to do. Beyond that, I think communities are starting to look at vacancy taxes and things that a community would have to pass on their own. I think we can shorten up some of the time periods on vested rights, not the legally ones bound in the state constitution, but this, oh, you just did your demo permit, so now you have another year. You just did your excavation, so now you have another year. You have this, you have another year. I think we can change the fees related to the parking that they need to such projects and get more of a specific timeline at the time of application. You have to grant a little grace to those who were struck by the pandemic problems. That has changed financing, has changed the availability of a labor force, but it's not effective to have the downtown with boarded up buildings. I think we can change our codes and work faster to accommodate moving these things forward, and that applies to residential projects as well.
Katie, any thoughts on this development question?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there was a certain project on Main Street that was started when my kids were in elementary school, and they're going to college next year. So, yeah, you know, it is. I can't stand seeing all these buildings that are just kind of sitting there ready to go. But here's the thing, you know, strict doesn't have to be complicated, and I think the city tends to make everything complicated and difficult. At the same time, there are developers who haven't pushed projects through as quickly as everyone would like to see. I think there's probably problems on both sides. And, you know, I've talked to the city and I've talked to some of the developers. And guess what? There's problems on both sides. So maybe we ought to figure out what are the carrots and what are the sticks between making the city more efficient, and there's a lot of different ways to do it. I don't know whether staff is necessarily the right answer. A lot of times processes can be fixed opposed to adding more people to a problem. You simplify the process and it makes it so you don't need as many employees to execute that task. And then, you know, let's talk to the developers and find out where their issues are with the process as well. They're not incented to have an empty building forever either. It doesn't help them any more than it helps us.
We're going to move on to phase 3 here. Quick questions and quick answers.
Oh, I forgot about that one.
Yeah.
All right. We have
30 seconds.
30
yeah.
seconds?
30
Okay.
second answers, and there's no rebuttal. It's directed to a candidate, and you answer it, and we move to the next question.
Okay.
All right, prepare yourselves. Katie, in 2023, this is for you, you lost your re-election bid to the Aspen School District Board of Education. What did you learn about this campaign, and how are you going to apply this to the campaign you're running currently?
So besides not trying to run a congressional and a school board campaign at the same time, that was the first thing that I learned. You can only do so many things at once. You know, I think there was a lot of. I think I probably could have put more work into that campaign, first of all. I mean, I was joking about that, but truly, I did not have as much time to spend on the actual campaign, and there were a number of qualified candidates that were, you know, working really hard at the same time. So I could say more than 30 seconds about that campaign, but I'll leave it at that. Of course.
Rachel, you've served in public office in the Valley for over 30 years, and you announced your retirement from office 2 years ago. Why have you decided to run again, and why should voters re-elect you as mayor?
Thank you very much. The pandemic took a toll on all of us, and it did for myself as well. I was working part-time in the little pharmacy at the city market and would hear a lot of pressure, but I'm proud of how the city handled the pandemic, assisting with the business community, helping to reduce rates. I believe I bring the experience and the skills necessary to tackle the big issues. I also felt it was necessary to really jump in on the entrance to Aspen after I saw the Fix the Bridge campaign effort ignore the bigger problem and move just to try to force a 3-lane bridge down our throats.
Absolutely. Now, Katie, this is pertaining to the sort of the innards of city council.
Okay.
How would you navigate any personal attacks or divisive rhetoric within the council in order to create a conducive atmosphere?
Any personal what?
Any personal attacks.
Attacks.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't hear that.
I
So
know.
how would I counter that? Well, so I was on the school board during COVID as well, and let me tell you, things got very personal. We had 3-hour-long public comments. And I think that you set some rules for behavior, for how you interact with each other. When we were on the school board, we actually had a self-evaluation that we went through every year and said, how did we treat each other? Did we listen to each other? Did we interrupt each other? And it's basic management stuff. And I have decades of management skills. It's basic management.
Okay, so, thank you.
All right, Rachel, there was a recent community survey conducted by the city, found that residents have low confidence in city governance. I recall, aging myself here, when you were mayor and also on council some 20 years ago, there was a lot of divisiveness on the council then, and contentious remarks from residents back in those days. Do you think it's all that different today? Do you think that we need a healer as mayor or someone who is going to stir the pot?
Great question. I think that the issues we've seen in the past 2 years have been inaction and not moving forward on things the community cares about the most. I think you need to seek agreement on what problems are, but at the end of the day, you need to make decisions. And decisions often are contentious in a community like this where people have come from very high-powered jobs, high-powered positions. But the respect and listening to everyone, not turning your back on anyone in the audience, and having a voice for people with true transparency makes a real difference. Thank you very much.
Katie, did you vote for ballot item 1C in the November election, and if so, why? That was the airport question, of course, that sought to allow.
The numbers change every time.
Yeah, I
You
know,
can't keep
right?
your
I know.
numbers.
It's tough. It can be tough to keep up with.
That
but-
was the pro-airport one.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So, yes,
Okay.
this was the airport.
Well, you could argue they were both pro-airport.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Okay, so it was, okay.
it was
One
widen the
citizen.
runway, relocate the runway, allow
Exactly.
bigger planes.
Exactly.
So the question was,
Yeah, to the airport question that sought to allow the Board of County Commissioners to retain its authority over runway and airport projects. So if you did vote for that, why?
I did vote for it, and I am very supportive of having a functioning infrastructure in our community. I spent a lot of time commuting for for my CEO role in the last 15 so years. And it's essential. It's essential for our tourist economy. It's essential for our business economy, and to serve locals, visitors, and the whole valley. The runway was falling apart. Like, how do you not fix it? Month-long closures every day forever? That would be terrible. We needed a new airport.
Rachel, did you vote for ballot item 1C and in the expectation that these airport projects, I'm sorry, did you vote for 1C and given the expectation that these airport projects will move forward, do you think the city will have a harder time managing growth over the next, I don't know, 10 to 20 years?
Actually, I voted no on both questions. I did not believe that the community could self-fund an airport, as some people proposed, and I also did not want to give the county unlimited power that people could not bring something forward in the future in terms of a referendum. But that vote ended up leaving the county commissioners, who have been elected and have professional advice, to make the decisions. So that's how I handled that issue. I think that growth is inevitable in Colorado. We don't control what's happening down valley. People are taken down valley when they can't afford Aspen and told to buy basalt in Carbondale, which is leading to our housing crisis.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Now on to the fun stuff.
Now the fun one, and we're going to allow the candidates to ask each other a question.
No more of, like, what's your favorite fish, or what's...
Maybe. I mean, we might get to it.
Who did you bet on in the Super Bowl? Ray, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So now that we're on to the candidates asking each other a question, maybe even two if we get to it. So you get 90 seconds to answer, and then another 60 seconds for the questioner to respond. Katie, we will start with you. Ask a question to Rachel, please.
Okay. Let's see. Which is it going to be? So my question to you, Rachel, is why have you lost faith in our community to handle its own decisions? This ballot measure that you're supporting and you helped put on cedes control of our open space, invalidates our home rule charter, just throws it out the window and gives all control of this bridge to and the entrance to the state. Why don't you trust the voters and the elected officials that you're trying to become again to solve this problem?
Frankly, I do trust the voters, and that's why I am opposed to referendum 1, which would try to create a super minority rather than a simple 50% on open space issues. I think this is the vote to say we want to move forward. We want to see the bridge fixed. We want to start being able to get in line for federal money and state money, that we should not be self-funding it, that we want to send a signal to the new council that it's time to move forward and stop just kicking this can down the road. You know, I was there when there was Better Plan 95, proposed by many of the same folks now, and that was in 1994, and they said, just vote no now, and we'll have a better plan in 1995, and that was 30 years ago. It's time to move forward. It's time to deal with all the issues, to be able to support mass transit, to be able to reduce congestion, to be able to improve air quality. It's in time to move forward, and so that's why I think this questioning comes forward. This is very much in reaction to the referendum 2 and to the inaction of our council not putting the ballot measure themselves on in November. Mr. Sam Rose said, we don't even know if people would support the preferred alternative. And he said we should put it on the ballot, and then they backed out of it. And we only reacted into when the Ref 1 people tried to change the city charter with a very dangerous measure that says it affects not just acquired open space, but anything used as open space. I think that's detrimental to the community and shows a lack of faith in your own neighbors.
Absolutely.
Katie, you get 60 seconds to respond to what she just said.
Okay. This is confusing.
We just came up with it.
Does she get to respond to what I say? No. So here's the thing. The way the ballot measure is written is it actually does not say that we ever get another vote or ever get any input into it. If you actually read what was written, and I've talked to a number of people who are on your team with this, who didn't seem to say anything other than, well, that wasn't the intention. Well, the problem is a contract's a contract, and when you write a ballot measure, you write a ballot measure. And it makes it so that the state does not have to ask us again. They can go and do what they want. In addition, there's hundreds of thousands of dollars. There's an anonymous donor out there. I saw the email that is matching donations. I understand that you were asked a question in a forum yesterday about this and refused to answer or acknowledge that it was even existing.
Moving on, your turn for a question.
Yes, thank you. There's been a lot of noise made about open space, and specifically related to the entrance to Aspen and the new measure for a 60-40 vote, even though the city's Open Space and Trails Citizen Advisory Board voted to oppose Referendum 1, that they feel open space is well protected now. I'm wondering, as someone who cares to be a full-time mayor, did you participate in the open space ballot measure that was renewed, the half-penny tax in perpetuity 2 years ago? Did you contribute to that campaign? Did you help write a letter to that campaign or anything like that to help protect open space?
I have zero recollection of that campaign. I was in the middle of my husband's congressional campaign, so I don't recall whether I supported that or did that. In addition, I have not come out in support of Referendum 1, publicly, privately, at all. So I am talking about the bridge. If the community decides that it wants a supermajority or a 60% vote of open space, I'll support it. If they decide they don't, I won't support it. And if the same thing goes for Referendum 2. If the community votes at the end of the day, and I'm elected mayor, and they vote to say, yes, we are going to have a Referendum 2 is going to pass and we're going to have the preferred alternative, guess what? I will support that because I will listen to the will of the voters as the elected official.
Absolutely.
Great.
Rachel, you can respond to that.
I've gotten your mailer that says you've been fighting your whole life for Aspen. Did you participate in the Burlingame vote to make that affordable housing happen? That took 2 different votes of the public. And I think that good things don't happen on their own. I think you have to get out there more than a part-time job and participate to move things forward quickly. I think the public deserves to know how you feel about Ref 1, not one way or the other, whatever happens. It's an important measure for us going forward as a community. I think that the entrance to Aspen is the most pressing issue that we face. I think that we can't sit back and say, oh, well, maybe we could find a way to self-fund a 3-lane bridge, and maybe it won't cause traffic disruptions for the next 4 years, and maybe there won't be a wildfire while we're waiting for funding. I think a mayor should be able to work hard to make sure that that happens, to work down in Denver, to work legislatively, to talk with our Congress people, and make sure we get this fixed before there are real serious issues. Thank you.
This has been fun, but we're going to move to closing remarks, 90 seconds per person. And we're going to start with Rachel.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank the audience and everyone else who's been here today. These are very serious issues, and I can't just kind of laugh about them as much as I would like. I think it's important to look at the record of experience and accomplishment and getting real results. Time passes. Windows of opportunity come and go. Windows close. And to just say we can just keep kicking this can down the road and hope there'll be a new unicorn solution that everyone really wants for the entrance to Aspen, that our workforce will just continue to work here rather than taking better jobs down Valley. I think that the affordable housing crisis has not even peaked yet when we start to see people in the free market homes in Basalt and Carbondale retire as is their due. They made that choice to make the commute for years, and they deserve their retirement there. I am available to people. I will be working full-time. I feel I have the courage to take on special interest. And I would particularly like to mention again that the spending reports come out on Friday. There will be no anonymous donors. People are proud to say who they donated for and why. But the other campaign, the Friends of Mayoral, is a 401c3. They're running cartoons in the newspaper. They've always been organized. Who knows who funded the Fix the Bridge campaign that spent 20 months trying to pressure the council into only looking at that. They took 3 separate letters from the Colorado Department of Transportation to say you need a new EIS if you want a new corridor, and they want to push it into a different neighborhood than the people who already knew it was coming there since 1978. The federal government has NEPA standards, and we have control going forward. The city continues to maintain control in every memorandum of understanding.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Rachel, audience, the media, everyone, the thousands of people watching from home, and hopefully all the reporters are going to write about this tomorrow, too.
Of course.
So I believe our best days are ahead, and I believe that bringing that attitude and that outlook to a leadership role is essential. That you shouldn't be in leadership if you don't have a positive outlook about moving forward. From the entrance, since we've talked about it so much, I feel I should have one little closing argument on it, which is I think we need to open up a new EIS. We need to look at a new plan and look at new solutions. Bring a fresh perspective to this very, very old debate and not just count on work that was done 30 years ago, and also not have the attitude of, well, we worked really hard on it 30 years ago, so we have to get this solution done. There's no vested interest in this one particular solution. It may end up being the best case, but we owe it to ourselves, to our community, to our open space to look forward. On any outcome, I will support the outcome. If referendum 2 passes, I will support that. If it fails, we will open up a new EIS and move forward. I'll be open-minded. I will listen to everyone, whether it's our visitors, our residents, down valley alike, our workers. It's important. I will bring new ideas, a fresh perspective, new leadership, experienced leadership, and I will listen to the professional experts and not the professional politicians. This is not a full-time job. This is a weak mayor position and a strong council, and I would be a part of that team and not an individual leader. www.katyforaspen.com, and I humbly ask for your vote. Thank you all.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you
Thank you
guys
both.
both. You did a great job.
Thanks.
And you have tough. Good plan.
Thanks. Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah, we want to extend our gratitude to both of the candidates for participating and for our audience, our engaged citizens, and special thank you to GrassRoots TV. Don't forget to vote. In-person voting is now open through 7 p.m. on Election Day, March 4th at City Hall. Your voice matters in shaping the future of our community.
And stay informed by following coverage from the Aspen Daily News, the Aspen Times, and on Aspen Public Radio. Together, we can ensure a vibrant and accountable community. Have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.